welcome Ben Basile to the Dish with Dina podcast. Thank you so much for being with me today.
I am very excited to be here and talk with you.
This is a first for me because never in the 5 years I've been doing this have I ever interviewed two relatives, let alone two siblings, let alone twins. So you are related to one of my dear friends and former classmate slash colleagues when I was going through my dietetic academic journey. My dear friend Anthony, who looking over here, he was in the previous season on episode 129. So of course I'll link to him, his episode there as well. So will you share with our followers, our listeners, our viewers? Who you are, what you do, and where you're at, snippet, and then we'll go a little bit more into detail as our
Sure
conversation
thing.
progresses.
Yes, sure thing. As previously mentioned, I am an identical twin. My brother is Dr. Anthony Basile, and this is kind of how I ended up here on the podcast with Dina today. I am a full-time freelance musician. I play bass, I play electric bass and upright bass. I also teach music as well as a result of being a musician and having a very great career, which I'm very grateful for. I travel a lot, all the time. Last year, 2024, I spent 100 days not at home, not in the Hudson Valley. I average close to 125 to 150 gigs a year, so I'm constantly on the road traveling. And I just released my own debut record last month. It's called Benergy. It is an instrumental ska, reggae, and jazz record, all just mixed mashed together. It's very good. It was released on a record label called Sleepwalk Sounds. It's available on vinyl, CD, all the digital streaming platforms. Just type in Benergy. Um, there's not much on the internet with that name, so you'll find it right away.
I always like going through an origin story too. So where was it for you or was there an early interest in what ended up being your career now? Can you walk us through a little bit about the pathway that you took from earlier in your childhood or
Yeah,
earlier
for sure.
years?
I was a late bloomer when it came to music. I first started playing trombone in junior high and I hated it. I skipped all my lessons. It didn't really click. About senior year of high school, I borrowed a friend's bass guitar. It was covered in dust in the corner of his room, and I was like, hey, let me borrow that for a little bit. I studied business for a couple years at community college, and then my thought process was, well, if I have to go get a bachelor's degree, I might as well have fun doing it. And I studied music after that, and just completely fell in love, and it was life changing. I had very great teachers early on to mentor me. And it kind of just clicked. So eventually I went to SUNY New Paltz. I got a degree in jazz studies. While I was at New Paltz, I was just like, I think I can do this. I think I can be a full-time musician. Um, and then yeah, then I just full disclosure, I lived at home with my mom for 5 years after college, and that was about how long it took for me to, build a career and a network and be able to sustain myself since then. So yeah, it's been a wild ride.
I appreciate that. It does take a village sometimes to help us get through whatever it is that our pursuits are or our interests are. And I know you probably know also from Anthony's conversations of the difficulties and the challenges that are involved in going through what it is to become a registered dietitian of all the blood, sweat, and tears and so on. And so, Ben, I want to talk a little bit, well, I want to talk about a lot of things because you're coming into this in from a health and wellness stance as well. Like, you are a human, you are a traveling musician, and there are a lot of things as I'm thinking, and you could probably elaborate on this, obviously, of what it entails to have the stamina and the strength and the jet lag and the recovery and the food choices and whether or not you're managing conditions or allergies while you're on the road or overseas.
Mhm.
But before we go into all of that, can you give us, I'm not going to say typical because I'm sure it's not typical. What is a current week in the life of you right now? Like, where do you fit in the teaching? Where do you fit in the touring? Where do you fit in the practice? Where do you fit in your own personal non-negotiables?
Every Tuesday is kind of the start of my week, and I say that with air quotes. So every Tuesday night, I perform in Poughkeepsie, New York, and I run a jazz jam session. And so that's the start. And then Wednesday, Thursdays are my 2 days that I am at home and available for teaching lessons to my students. The vast majority of them are on Zoom. but some of them come to this room here for lessons. And then, so I kind of consolidate everywhere that I need to be into the middle of the week so that over the weekends I can go out and travel and then recover and then come back and do it all again. So I leave my Friday, Saturday, Sunday just always open and available for gigs and performances and touring and traveling. And then Monday is kind of my recovery day slash set everything back up for the next week to get going.
Yeah, these cyclical approaches, like there's never really a day off when you're doing something that you love that you think of as a career and not a job.
Yeah.
That's a theme that comes up a lot in these
Yep.
conversations too. Can you talk to us too a little bit about your own development? Like what is it that you have to stay abreast of? Like in the science world, we're doing professional continuing education units, we're learning about different research things that have come out, we're understanding different approaches to the US healthcare system. What is it in your language that kind of mirrors how you professionally develop yourself?
The first thing that comes to my mind is the non-musical side of it, right? Because I always say that the music part of this is easy. And fun. And it's the lifestyle, maintaining health, maintaining mindfulness, maintaining sanity while you travel as much as I do is very, very difficult. And so that's the kind of stuff that I stay focused on a lot to be grounded. But to answer the musical side of it, yeah, of course, practicing, listening to new music, learning new music. I would say that I make a pretty big note to go see music still, which is like kind of which like is it sounds like a no-brainer to a non-musician, but when you are working in this industry and all your nights you spend going out and performing for other people, it's like it is a little like when you have a rare Friday night off, your first thought is not let me go out and see music and go back to that world where I have off from. But I do very much try to go see my friends play, see the people that inspire me, see my mentors and teachers go play, because I really feel that that is what brought me to this career. So stepping back into being a fan and watching the artists that you love really reminds me why I do what I do. Because otherwise, you forget about it. If you're just on the other side of it all the time, playing outward, you gotta get on the other side and go, that's right. Like I love live music. I love this music. This is what I love. And you need to be on the other side of the room, not working, right? Like when I'm on tour, all the other bands I love are playing, but I'm like still in go mode because I need to go play in an hour or two. So, the last show that I went to with my brother, we went down to Brooklyn and there was six ska bands playing in a row in like 4 hours. And I just stood in the front row and watched all of my friends play the entire night, and I had the biggest smile on my face and it was just so refreshing to see them do their thing and let me just enjoy it without needing to get ready for me to go perform or find out where the hotel is and do the drive or get back to the merch table or squeeze in the meal before the set like so that's what I do to help learning and growing, just experiencing the music
Yeah.
because it's when you're on the other side of it for so long, it can be very disconnecting.
On a lot of our ends now too as dietitians, well, depending on what they do. Obviously, if you're working in a facility, you're milling about with a bunch of people in 3D form. But for those of us in private practice, it's very isolating. I don't have coworkers. I see people from the neck up, and that's all, and sometimes not even with their cameras on. And I teach as well, as I'm sure you know from discussions with Anthony too. I teach as well, and the students sometimes don't put their cameras on, and we are definitely moving and shifting towards this hybrid format of not even being in person anymore on campus to make it easier for students to access resources and access their learning. But I think the things that I was scribbling down that kind of feel parallel in the world of professional development is that discussion about filling your cup of like really getting back into networking and also listening to, you're in your world, it's the musical language. In our world, it might be the science language or clinical things, conferences that we're going to, and also engaging in with colleagues and seeing like what's new with other people and what are you working on these days. And I think that really helps reinforce and strengthen the fact that it is a career and it doesn't have to be so isolating, or it doesn't have to be constantly this, myopic view of I'm only going towards a direction of what I am defining as success. I'm also allowing myself to see what else is out there and just like you said, enjoying like the fun of it. Sometimes when we go to these really, no offense, boring clinical conferences, the most fun is like the happy hour networking things and the mixers after we get to meet and greet, and then we offshoot and do, dinners with each other in different neighborhoods when we are on site or off site. So I
Yeah.
really love all of that. And I think talking too about the lifestyle part of it. So this is really where I think I want to learn a little bit more about how do you, one of the big things that we talk about with some of the clients and helping people with maintaining consistency and routine and structure, like that feels like it goes out the window if you're working with a touring schedule and practicing and
Yeah.
you have teaching things that you're working on too. How do you manage, meal planning? How do you manage fitting in your self-care activities or physical fitness? I'm assuming, again, having to be on your feet and performing is physical activity in
Oh,
itself.
yes.
But sleep is a big thing too. Like we talk a lot about the very, very big importance of almost prioritizing sleep. So walk us through a little bit about all of the health pillars that you try to keep upright.
Yeah. So when you're freelance and you're self-employed, personal life and health and mindfulness and wellness, for me, all gets mixed into the music and the music business side of it. I live my life by my Gmail calendar. My Gmail calendar is crazy, and it is all mixed in with the music stuff and the health and lifestyle and wellness stuff as well. So, um, I make the health side of my life as important as the music side of my life. They just have to be enmeshed because if I'm unhealthy or unhappy, the music side will suffer, and it just all goes back and forth. Sorry. So for example, I have every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I have exercise and stretch in my Gmail calendar. And if I don't do it on Monday, it gets moved over to Tuesday. And if I don't do it, then I have to I make sure I do it 3, sometimes 2 times a week to get exercise and movement in. That can just be jogging or it can be riding the exercise bike while watching Netflix. All of that is good. I also have flossing in my calendar as well because that is something that, actually my brother mentioned that on your podcast. Uh, and so I have flossing in my calendar as well, right there next to like text your students and confirm the lesson for this week. I have floss, and it actually says floss please in my Gmail calendar, because you need to be kind to yourself. And in terms of the food side of it, I I I made this decision probably in 2012, when I really started performing a lot locally because I would perform 2, 3, 4 nights a week in restaurants. Most of the time, the restaurant gives you a free meal of whatever you want. And it was pretty early on that I figured out, well, I shouldn't probably eat wings and French fries for free 4 nights a week for the rest of my life. So pretty early on, I made a very hard rule of salads only. And I will say that it is like 99% of the time just salads. Unless I happen to be at a fancier restaurant, or maybe there's something on the menu that is very, very appealing to me, but 99% of the time it is salads. If it's my birthday week or a holiday, I will treat myself to a burger with a gluten-free bun, and fries. But you just have to. I just kind of accepted. I was like, man, if I'm gonna do this 3, 4 nights a week, I have to do it in a way that I'm not gonna be unhealthy, and then there also comes the side of it, like. Most of my local gigs and things like our restaurants and like mellow, I'm playing jazz and it's a little bit more relaxed and the pacing is slower. But when I play with like Big D and the Kids Table, or I go on stage playing ska or punk rock, it is exhausting. And eating a burger and fries before I have to run around on stage for an hour and a half, is pretty counterintuitive. So I always eat light before I go on stage.
I too am of the mindset, while I have a variety of different places that I'll like brain dump things, I live through my calendar. And I that's one of the suggestions that I recommend to anybody that I work with and my students
Yeah.
too, who sometimes don't listen to me. But I recommend if you don't see it in front of you, if it's not something that is assigned a particular day or time or week, or like you said, even if you are flexible enough where if it doesn't occur on a certain time that you wanted it to, you can move it over. But if it's not there, you're not going to do it. And so chunking up the time and blocking things off or getting things done where you're feeling a little bit more efficient or utilizing your downtime to catch up on things like email or whatever. And then also, okay, I like the flossing thing. Like I also have an AM and a PM block of a routine. You know, this is where I go wash my face, put my pajamas on, get ready for the next day, prepare whatever, lights out, read a little book, I'll journal a little bit. So I think the productivity tools and systems is something that really helps people, especially when you're juggling quite a lot of things. And really, who isn't juggling a lot of things? I mean, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter what we're
yeah,
doing. We're humans. We're always doing a bunch of different things.
yeah.
But to really plan things out. Now, the flexibility around that, I think that's important because if you do have a schedule, you might not be able to be as flexible as if you were in more control of your time. So if you're going to have to travel, that counts in, you know, travel time or setup or breakdown or whatever. So tell us a little bit about that too. Like where it comes to, I think I said it before, like a non-negotiable for you. If all at the end of the day, if everything else fails, or if the end of the week everything else fails, what are some of the most important things that you want to make sure you are doing somewhat consistently?
Exercise, making sure I get that 2 to 3 jogs in a week really makes a difference. Because when I am on tour and traveling all weekend, you are literally just sitting. You are sitting in a van or on an airplane or in a car, and it can be 6 to 8 to 10 hours of sitting and not even doing anything. Maybe I'm driving. Making sure I get the exercise in during the week really helps balance out the boringness and sitting of just being on the road. And then of course, eating well throughout the week. And what took me a long time to really figure out was eating well through the weekend and eating well through traveling as well. For a long time it was eating well and controlled during the week, and then not really being able to maintain that through the weekend or on the road or on tour. So it took a long time to kind of really figure that out. The other thing I'll say too is just like taking the time for myself is very important on the days off, or if I have a rare Friday night off. And if I'm not going to go see music, as I just mentioned before, I stay home and take 2 recipes that I want to make, and I stay home and just cook and listen to music or a podcast, and making sure that you're taking the time for yourself while you're in the busy schedule. When you are self-employed like this, it's very hard to not just feel like you're on all the time, and I need to be able to turn off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will agree with that. I think the challenge that I hear a lot of people in the private practice world say too, and I agree with this, it's like if we're not seeing patients or clients, like we're not getting paid for the day. But that is poor planning. You know, like there is a way for us to say, well, okay, either we have to increase how much we're charging, or we have to increase the amount that of people that we're seeing in the course of a week to be able to manage our expenses, or we have to decrease our expenses and figure like how can we live a little bit more
Oh,
meagerly or
yes.
minimally, and what can we do
Yeah.
without? We recently got rid of cable television. It was probably I don't even miss it at this point anymore. And so, making do with what you got. I think I don't like using the word excuse, but there's definitely reasons that people feel like they can never slow down. And I think especially like I said earlier, regardless of what you're juggling, whether it's a career or it's a business or it's a family or it's academic journey or whatever your response or taking care of your older parents, whatever your responsibilities are, there has to be a time where you slow down because you're not good if you're not filling the well. You have to make sure that you have something to pour out of. And so that emotional bank account always comes into my mind as well. Like I know when I'm at the edge of getting burnt out and I just have to unplug, even if it's just 2 hours on a day that I know later on I'll be working anyway,
Yeah.
but just to really take that time and be like, nobody talk to me. I'm going off grid for a
Yeah.
certain amount of time. So I love that. So Ben, you mentioned in your bio to me that you have traveled pretty much all over the world. I don't even, is it 7 continents? You travel six
No,
of
six
them?
continents. I'm waiting on Antarctica.
Okay. When they open up, you'll be the
Yeah.
first to perform there. So you don't have to name names, but where has been the most challenging place that you felt was able to support your health and wellness needs, whether it was like, I can't find anything quote unquote good or healthful to eat, or I'm really struggling with the way that there's no access to certain things like location wise, it felt very isolating. Can you share with us a little bit about where, if whether it's in this country or in other parts of the
Yeah, of
world?
course. It's a constant challenge to just make sure I'm eating well on the road. But I will give you a specific example. I think it was 2014 or 15, and we did a tour of Southeast Asia on the way to Australia. Now, this tour was like life-changing for me. I do remember, so obviously when you're dealing with like border crossings and immigration, you can't exactly just bring a bunch of food with you. When I travel in the States or when I go, to other countries where it's a little easier. Nowadays, I bring all the snacks with me. But this tour, because we were literally hopping from country to country, day to day, and it was early in my career that I didn't quite figure some of this stuff out yet. I just remember we were like in Indonesia, and I just like had a cold for 3 days, and our trombone player Logan just looked at me and goes, "Ben, when was the last time you had any fruit?" And I was like, it wasn't on this continent, so like I gotta figure that, and then I went to a grocery store and just like bought some fruit and juice, and that helped, because we were traveling through Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia, and it was like, just a lot of meat. I'm trying to remember. Obviously, there was like a lot of bread and rice and things like that too. But in general, it can be very challenging to get fruits and vegetables when we're on the road traveling.
I don't know exactly if all or certain countries are like this, but sometimes they have to import things, like they don't actually grow things. And so also the cost of what you're purchasing there. So talk to us a little bit about that too. Like you had just mentioned, what can or cannot you bring? What can or cannot you know what I'm saying. What can you bring or what can you not bring when you're going into or out of different countries? And
Yeah,
also the price, like how much are you budgeting for stuff that you have to eat?
it's a lot of different situations, but obviously they don't really want fresh fruits or vegetables coming across or anything farm or livestock. You can't really bring meat and things like that. Most of the time, I bring my food with me nowadays, in terms of like the snacks and things like that. Um, and then, but it's also all the situations are pretty different. Sometimes when we travel, we're like just kind of on our own for eating and feeding ourselves. And then other times we travel, it's like the person who is hosting us or has booked us is going to feed and just supply all the food and stuff. So they're both pretty two different situations. Yeah, I mean, I remember on that tour, I had an apple in my backpack and I got stopped at customs and they were like, "You can't bring this in," and I was like, okay. So I think I either ate it super quickly or I threw it out. I don't remember. I think I just threw it out because I was like standing at a border crossing and didn't want to. When you're going back and forth, between like US and Canada, it's like really no big deal. They don't really care. But I mean, going into Southeast Asia, it was intimidating at the borders because we didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah. Hopefully you're reading like all of the policies and protocols before you head into it. But that brings me to my next question. Can we spend a few minutes talking about the business end of things? Do you have help from a manager or an assistant or people who are your on-site contacts who, are receiving you and know what to help you with or provide you with or give you an itinerary of some things to get you in and settled and often successful, whether you're, coming from the professional end of things or the personal end of things?
I'll try to be kind of broad for this question because I do travel with a variety of bands, and with that comes a variety of budgets and band size. I'll talk about like my main band, Big D and the Kids Table, who's one of the more successful and well-known bands. But we are self-managed, so we kind of do everything ourselves. It's for the most part delegated between the band members, but we do have a booking agent who is like the direct contact to all the different cities and clubs and helps put together the whole tour. That booking agent forwards all of the information to us, so everything we would need on the ground for those shows gets sent to us. And then as we get to each city, yeah, there is a promoter or a day of show contact who will be the person to like let us into the venue, tell us where the good coffee shops are, all of that. And then So for Big D and the Kids Table, we do have a rider. So when we arrive at the venue, there is foods and drinks that we request to be there. And so most of the time we have a rider kind of sitting and waiting for us. Over the years, I mean, the band has been around for 30 years, so over the years that rider has changed and developed a lot. For the most part, we get handed what we call just a buyout, and we get handed $20, and we say, "Hey, go find your own dinner. Here you go. You each, everybody take $20. Go find your own dinner." And then that's on us to scout the meal before that.
I appreciate
Yeah.
this conversation because it ties into a lot of times we talk about delegating things. Like
Mhm.
there's only so many hours in a week, there's only so much energy that people have. And so where do we place our efforts? And also the control aspect too of like, well, I can't give that away to somebody to do because I want it to do myself. And then you end
Mhm,
up doing
mhm,
all the
mhm.
things yourself. And so I appreciate that insight from the fact that, you are relying on other people to help with you so that you don't have to do all the things. You don't have to juggle everything. I mean, I'm sure in the early days of inception of kicking off and getting gigs and stuff, it probably might not have been that professional approach, but over the course of time. So anybody who is starting a business, anybody who is self-employed, anytime you see yourself struggling with things, think of where you can integrate some things, whether it's ordering your groceries online or taking your laundry to be done on site versus you spending
Sure.
3 hours at the laundromat. And anywhere you can set aside some budget, or that time is really valuable to
Yeah.
get back. And that's where I think, Ben, that comes into what you were saying before of like, no matter what, I want to make sure I'm always having time for myself, whether it's quiet time or physical activity time.
Yeah, one of the things on the road, I just mentioned like we get handed a buyout and then we go find our own dinner. That's very often some time where I will be like, goodbye to the rest of the band. I was like, I'm gonna take 45 minutes and go find my own. I'm gonna walk to my own restaurant and just be away from the musicians who I have been quote unquote stuck with all day. So you just got to take that time for yourself, and take it and go outside.
Yes,
It's
doesn't
it
mean
sounds
you
so
don't
it
love
sounds
them.
it sounds so simple. You're just like, oh, let me leave the venue and go outside
Hmm.
and get some fresh air. Like, but you need to take that time for yourself.
Yeah.
I kind of want to give you a little bit of a rundown though, if you don't mind. I have really kind of just developed this system of how I sustain myself on the road. If I know I'm going on tour and I'm going to be away for 7 days. Prior to leaving, I line up 7 days worth of snacks. And what that does is it means I know exactly what I'm going to be eating each day in terms of food content or even calories, right? It is a third to half the price of buying those same snacks in a gas station or on the road. So each day on the road, it starts with an RX bar, and then there is always a fruit bar, like a mango banana bar. There is always some sort of like a beef jerky or something like that. And then there is one like I do like those like gluten-free fig cookies as well. And then something chocolate, like a chocolate and almond butter bar or something like that. So I bring those five things with me every single day on the road. And I line them all up as I count it. I'm like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Blah, blah, blah. And so I bring all those with me on the road. I also make my own coffee on the road now too. So I have an AeroPress Go, and I bring my own kettle to use with it. And I bring two of these because I'm kind of a 2 cups a day. So there's obviously sometimes the trade-off of like, we need to leave the hotel at 8 a.m. So does that mean I'm going to get up at 7 to make the coffee, or should I just sleep till 7:30 this week and not make the coffees? So, but most of the days I wake up a little extra early to have a little routine of myself of making coffee for me for the day. Um, both of these coffee mugs keep the coffee hot for like 4 hours, so I do that as well. And again, that one is mostly for saving money on the road. 2 cups of coffee a day, 2 cups of coffee at a Starbucks with a tip adds up every single day. So I bring my own coffee with me on the road. Is it a little annoying and silly? Yeah, but it means I also get a cup of coffee that I like every single day. Because we're traveling, I can't really be like, hey, we need to go to this kind of coffee shop every single day because it's the only one I actually like. And then yes, when it comes to the meal as well, at the end of the day, salads almost all the time exclusively just to eat something light and finally get some fresh vegetables. Other like little things that I do, I don't bring my wallet into the rest stop or gas station because then I just literally won't buy anything that I don't want to be eating. Like I said, most of the time when we're traveling, you are just bored and you're like, well, a bag of chips would make me a little happy right now for a little bit. To avoid any unwanted purchases or snacks, I don't bring the wallet in the gas station when we go in to use the bathroom. And then another thing that's kind of funny too is I have a very hard rule on the road of not eating after the show. Part of one of the things I do is intermittent fasting. But like I said, if you're bored and tired, that is when I will start to eat without really thinking about what I'm eating or how much I'm eating. So I made that a hard rule like 3 or 4 years ago of just no longer eating after the show, and that kind of helped me really control everything as well.
You could have very late nights. I mean, you end at times where people are already deep
Yeah,
in the heart of sleeping, and so that's kind
absolutely.
of like a night
Yeah.
shift approach. And so I just want to acknowledge, friends, right? Listen, what Ben is saying, this is what I'm talking about with meal planning and prepping. You do not have
Hmm.
to be making recipes from scratch. You do not have to be doing something different every time you open your mouth. You quite literally just look at your calendar and go, here's what my calendar looks like. Here's what I need to feed myself. How do I make this work? Whether it's semi homemade things, whether it's scratch cooking, whether it's frozen fruits and vegetables, canned
Yep.
goods, whatever, or stopping and getting pre-packaged items or convenience items that you have gone through kind of like the filter of reading the labels and knowing what works best for you and what feels comfortable as far as calories, because calories is energy. We all said, don't deny yourself of eating low cal stuff when you're moving a ton, you're moving around a ton. Hydration, is that something too, since you're at rest stops often? Like, can you drink enough water throughout the day as well?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I want to dive into one of my questions that I ask everybody on here. So I'm not sure how this might come across on your end of things, but one of the questions I ask a lot on here is what is maybe a current or hot topic that you are excited about or that you want to dispel? Like in the world of science, we always hear so many different things around misinformation. So, or like trends or different fad diets and things that people want to address, whether it's, condition specific or just generally, somebody on TikTok said something and now everyone's following those things to the detriment of their health. What is it on your end of things that feels kind of pertinent, relevant, current, hot, or anything that you're just excited to share?
All right. I'm gonna shatter the glass a little bit here for everybody, okay? Everybody, the assumption is if you are a full-time musician, the just general assumption is that your life is a party non-stop. All right. So I'm here to tell you that it is not. And I'm sorry to break the impression here of what you might think. Okay, I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm just speaking like generally.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna say
definitely for myself.
we
Okay?
can excuse the 80s hair bands that some of us grew up with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My career is so interesting because like I show up to do my job and they go, "Here's 2 cases of beer while you do your job." Or here's a drink, an open drink tab, or here's an open menu. Eat, drink whatever you want. I personally don't drink. My brother and I both never started, and so that's really helped me a lot as a musician. As you get a little bit older, I'm 37. I tend to see a lot more of the musicians who I work with are more focused on getting the right amount of sleep and not staying up late and being out too late or and also just eating well. Like at the end of the day, when you're on tour, it's a marathon and you do need to rest and take care of yourself the whole time. For an hour and a half when we're on stage, it looks like it's a party. And don't get me wrong, being on tour is great. But like I said, all I do is eat salads and try to make sure I go to bed. Don't get me wrong. Some musicians do continue to do all of this, and some of my friends do as well too. But I would say for the most part, we're like, no, 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 let's get to the hotel and rest because we just got to keep doing this again tomorrow. Let's get some rest. Obviously, rest can mean a couple drinks and a burger at the bar and then go to sleep, or rest can mean like, meditate and stretch and then go to sleep. Like everybody's version of how they take care of themselves is different. We'll be packing up sometimes and people are like, "Okay, where's the after party?" And we're like, La Quinta Inn, right over there behind the Denny's. We are gonna go to sleep now. See you next time."
Right, because you have to be, able to perform and function the next day, so you don't
Yeah.
want to end up having
Yep.
that be a bad set that you're playing. I want to ask you a couple more questions. The first
Sure.
one is, where do you see the future going for you? What do you have in mind, in store, in vision? Is there anything that you want to keep on doing, or anything you want to stop doing, or anything new that you want to start doing?
I'm just gonna keep on going, keep playing, keep traveling, and keep doing it within a way that I do not get burnt out. Last October, I literally got burnt out. I was sick for like 3 weeks, just traveling nonstop, and so now I'm more mindful of how much is too much on the road and how much is too much traveling, I just got called to see if I could do an extra weekend with one of the bands I play with, and I said I'm available if you need me, but I want to get swapped out of the other weekend because I can't really do three in a row anymore. Like it's a lot to just pack up and go, come home, pack up and go, come home. But yeah, I'm gonna keep going. I just released a record. I'm gonna play some more shows in the fall or winter to support that record that just came out. I have a little bit of travel coming up this summer, and then I have a lot more travel in the fall coming up as well.
Does it
Yeah.
ebb and flow at all? Because you mentioned 100 and something days away or not home. Do you have Are there seasonal things where you it gets a little bit more quiet, or it pretty much just is a constant flux?
I would say it's definitely like all year round, but
Yeah.
there are like, the winter slows down a little bit. Sometimes late summer can slow down a little bit. It's kind of it ebbs and flows based on the time of year, but also like where each project is in all of it, right? Shows, traveling, and eating,
Anything
sleeping.
and maintaining your overall health, which I
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
love hearing from. One of my next questions, or my final question before I go to my final question,
Okay.
is there anything that we haven't discussed, anything that I didn't ask, any final words of wisdom you want to share?
Okay. All right. So this is like one
This
little
is the
fun
open
thing.
forum.
One little fun thing that I always like to talk about. I became obsessed with food when my brother did. We are identical twins, and the harsh reality of being an identical twin is people compare you both all the time. So when he started studying food and nutrition, he started losing a bunch of weight, and I was like, well, I need to do that too. And so that was 2011, 12, 13, somewhere around there. It would have been shortly before you two met. And so right around that time is when my touring career kind of took off. I fell into a couple bands, and next thing you know, I'm traveling the world. And so my brother and I both mostly follow the paleo diet, loosely a little closer to the Mediterranean diet as well. But I do not have celiacs, or I can eat dairy without it. I'm not lactose intolerant. So I developed my own diet, which I call the continental paleo diet. And so this would be the first official format that I've ever talked about it. So this would be like my trademark or copyright now that I'm saying it to the public. Anyways, so being that I'm a touring musician and I get to travel and I'm very grateful. I've been to Italy 6 times, but like I don't have celiac disease. So you know what? I'm gonna eat pasta when I'm there because when in Rome, right? So I do this what I call continental paleo diet, and anytime I'm off of this continent, I'm just going to eat and experience the trip and experience the country because I'm grateful to be there, and it would be a shame if I did not have fish and chips when I'm in Brighton, England. So I have my own diet called the Continental Paleo Diet. Yeah, the last time I ate gluten, I was in England. And it's kind of silly and a little fun because I'm like, hey guys, when's the next time we're going to Europe? I really want to eat some cheese. Like, that would be great. Thanks. Continental Paleo Diet.
I love the flexibility around that. I think that's something that I know when I do some work with my patients' clients, especially women who've been through like chronic dieting through their teenage years, and as they start, maybe they've had children and they want to kind of get back to their quote unquote, old body. They start going through these really restrictive approaches to food, and then they lose that relationship. And
Yep.
I like that you try to remain disciplined in as much as you possibly can. And the fact that, let's also give props. We have access to things that we want to eat. We can afford those things, or we can
Yep.
accommodate our needs and our interests in that sense. But then there's also the flexibility and the freedom around stuff. Like, I'm not going to deny myself. So even like you said, even if I want to stop eating at a certain time of night because that's kind of how I structure my meals, but if
Mhm.
there is a special occasion, I'm not going to deny myself of that, or I'm not going
Yeah,
to deny myself a particular
exactly.
food to enjoy that. So I really like that approach. Thank you, Ben.
You have to, of course, take care of yourself, but part of taking care of yourself is experiencing the great opportunities that come our way at times, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, it's kind of funny. Continental paleo diet.
You
My
heard it
friends
here,
will,
folks.
yeah,
Copyright
you
it.
hit her here first, but my friends will mess with me and just be like, "Oh, come on, pretend you're in France right now. Try this cheese." And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 hey, I don't need cheese
I
unless I'm in
can't cheat
France."
on my continent. I can't go outside the lines
But
there.
yeah, I mean, it was just like it was just a kind of something that happened over time. I was like, man, this is my first time going to France. I, I should just eat cheese and bread the whole time, like you do, right? But I just don't do that at home when I'm in control of my diet and lifestyle choices. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Like I said, you know what works for you. You're not being
Yeah.
restrictive about it. You're being flexible, and you
Yep.
do have some parameters. You're like, I know when I can let go a little bit more, and I would rather save my fun, indulgent times for when it means a little bit more to me than have it
Yeah.
be integrated as something that I don't really care too
Yeah.
much about.
So it's silly and it's fun, but
It
that's
is
that's what I do. The
It's not
continental
silly. It is
paleo diet.
yeah, it's very cool. And this is why there's like no one size fits all approach to anything. If people are trying to follow a particular diet plan, that there shouldn't
Yep.
always be rigidity around it. You should make sure it
Absolutely.
fits in within your own lifestyle
The
and your
only
own
diet
personality.
that works is the one that works for
The one
you.
that works for you, exactly. All right, Ben, we're coming up on the final moments of our time together. So I always ask my two-part pun intended question, which is what is on
Okay.
your plate today? So at the
Oh.
time of this recording, it is a Thursday late morning. So
Mm.
after we disconnect, what is the next thing that you're going to be working on? And what is the next meal that you'll be eating?
I'll do the working on thing. So I actually have a 12 o'clock Zoom meeting coming up next. My brother and his wife got me hip to a non-for-profit organization called Third Decade. Now, it is a financial literacy and education organization in your third decade of your life to set you up for making sure you have your like Roth IRA set up, making sure you're investing, making sure you're smart with your money and your savings, because let's face it, our society doesn't teach you how to do that. So it's this program called Third Decade. I highly recommend it to anybody who's listening. But I have my quote unquote final third decade recap meeting at 12 noon after this. If you go through the entire program, they give you $500 to put into your IRA investment when it's all said and done. So that's literally what I'm working on next. After that, I have a piano lesson. And then after that, I'm going to get pupusas with my brother for dinner. Before that, the second part of your question, what am I eating next? It's this really fun recipe that a friend of mine showed me a couple years ago. So you just take a pan, put some coconut oil, pumpkin seeds, lay it out. The second they start to brown, stir them up and lay them out again. So you're basically creating a crust with the pumpkin seeds. Okay. Now you crack two, three, four eggs on top. Crack those yolks and make sure the egg is spread out all over the pan. Low and slow. You want to cover it as well to help cook everything on top. And then you season it with herbs de Provence, oregano, rosemary, thyme, parsley, basil. Cook it low and slow. The whole thing slides out, and it's basically like you have a pumpkin seed crust with eggs and herbs on top. And it is absolutely delicious, and everybody should learn how to make it. And if I ever open a restaurant that does breakfast, that would be on the menu. So I'm actually making that right when we hang up, Dina.
And so simple. See, that's another suggestion. Home cooked meals don't have to
Sure.
be 1,000 ingredients, don't have to
Nope.
take a million hours to do. You got a handful of things in your pantry, in your refrigerator, or
Yep.
whatever, throw them in
Yep.
a pan and you're done.
Yep.
That sounds delicious.
What are you eating next?
Thank you for asking. No one, like, you're the only, as a matter of fact, this is so funny. I think Mike Schwartz is the last one that asked me this. I'm not sure what is next because I have bits and pieces of things that I have space to, like, usually I would like to sit down and just have a meal. So I'm probably
Hmm.
going to do my ye old standby, which is just a cup of yogurt, Greek yogurt, and I'll usually spoon in there like a couple teaspoons of flax seeds and a couple teaspoons of cacao nibs or something like that, just to kind of get me through. So that's technically the next thing I'm eating. It's not the biggest meal that I'm going to have today, but that's
Sure.
the next thing I'll have in between
Yeah.
things. Thank you for asking. Nobody ever asks that.
We love food. That's why we're
We
here.
do love food. I don't know why
Um,
there's not more questions.
and for those of you listening at home, the third track on my record is called Cacao Nib, and it is about
No.
and it is about how much I love chocolate.
Okay,
Dina, I
see,
could come on and do a whole other podcast talking about chocolate
we're going to.
if
I
we're
will.
ever
I
ready.
will. Okay, I will
I would be
100%
so
do
down.
that.
And
I already
we didn't even touch on the food justice food co-op
part
kind of
two.
stuff
Part
side of my
two.
life. So yeah, one day we can maybe do that again.
Yeah, we will absolutely reconnect, I'm sure, Ben. Well, listen, this
Yeah.
has been so fun getting to know you, and I'm so grateful to Anthony for putting us in touch with each other. And now, see, now I've made a new friend, and you will definitely be back again at some point in the near future
Let's do it.
here. So thank you so
Maybe
much.
you could have both of us on
Oh my
together.
gosh, double the trouble, double the fun.
Twin podcast. People will be like, I can't tell which one's talking. And then we'll be like, you have to go watch the video. Sorry. Um,
Exactly it. Oh, that's exactly it. Right. If you're listening to it versus watching it, you're going to have some trouble. Well,
it'll be a
thanks so
little
much
tough.
for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much, Dina.